So then guys, so it's Kit One again. Welcome back. Since I have taken a short break last week, since I have read the first three chapters of Disney Agent Stitch, The Trouble with Toothoids. So, I'm going to continue reading this book. Since you enjoyed that book so far, I hope you find it more interesting, very enjoyable, more informative. Okay, my friends, shall we continue to listen to a story more? I see strange things every day too, John Buzz said, pointing at Pleakley. I'm not used to it. Stitch thought for the moment, then pressed the centre of his Galactic Detective Agency badge. A hologram of a GDA official handbook appeared, and Stitch turned right to the section marked Close. Then he swiped at the top of the hologram as he made an entry. Close. 1. Reemin, Red Tooth, Lady in Trance. Bicycle rides itself very strange. When did this happen? Leo asked. Yes, Stitch said, trying to assert himself. He pushed himself in the front of Leo and faced Cobra directly. Where did this happen? At Grand Central Terminal, Cobra said. One of the largest transportation hubs in the city. The moment I saw the bicycle and a woman following it, I obviously knew something wasn't right. I attempted to scan for alien with my gloves, but before I could get the definitive reading, the bicycle and a woman ran down to the subway tracks and crossed over them towards the wall. A second later, the train pulled into the station and blocked them from sight. And then, Jumbo asked, interested. The little turtle bonked his head against his toe. Once more, he glanced down at the creature and said, My, but you are persistent. Doors opened. People got off the train. People got on. Then the train pulled away, and when it was gone, both the woman and the bicycle had vanished, Cobra said. Stitch continued to take notes furiously. What do you think, everyone? Lilo asked. Stitch cleared his throat, so the group turned to look at him as he finished his notes. Then he tapped the centre of his GDA badge. The hologram disappeared, and Stitch had held the paw to his chin. Stitch thinks, he said. Where to we go? We go to Grand Central Terminal. Then Stitch checked a new detective tool belt that he had been given to him by the Grand Councilwoman, like the tool belt he had back in Paris. This one had a case that seemed to be bigger on the inside than it was on the outside. Stitch had no idea how much it could hold or preciously what was stored in it. He just knew that when he reached in, he could generally find something useful. Stitch pulled out what looked like a compass. It had indicators for north, south, east and west, and all directions in between. Omni compass, Cobra observed. All you have to do to use it is. Stitch knows how, Stitch said, pulling the compass closer. Then Stitch looked for the buttons to press on the Omni compass, but there weren't any. so he started to shake it. And nothing happened. It doesn't work like that, Cobra said. Then he spoke into the Omi compass. Take us to Grand Central Terminal. A voice from the compass said, "Follow me." The device beeped and indicated for the group to walk south. How cool is that? Leader said. May? Was all Stitch could manage? He narrowed his eyes at Cobra. As everyone left, Jumbo noticed the turtle was now sitting on his foot. Very gently, he reached down, picked up the turtle and set it on the rock right at the edge of a pond. Here you go, little fellow, Jumbo said. Following Stitch and the group, Jumbo headed south towards Grand Central Terminal. If they had bothered to turn around, they would have seen the little turtle sitting on the rock, snowing as Stitch and his friends departed, and cackling in a most evil, unturtle-like way as his body slowly changed shape into a bicycle. It's about 45-minute walk from a turtle pond in Central Park to Grand Central Terminal, give or take. Stitch and company took a little over an hour, but that's only because there were some, let's call them, incidents that happened all along the way. Admittedly, most of these incidents could have been avoided if weren't for the certain one-eyed alien. Take a look at the next page, and you'll you'll see what we mean. In Incident 1, Prickly decided that he must have balloons. Incident 1, Balloon decided they must float away carrying Prickly, who refuses to let go. Incident 3, Bud decided to pop balloons and Jumbo catches Prickly. No more balloons for you, Jumbo said, as the group nears its destination, the whole walk south. Jumbo seemed to be getting increasingly annoyed with Prickly's antics. It could have happened to anybody. Prickly protested weakly. It didn't happen to anybody, Cobra replied. Exasperated. It's happened to you. Also, what are you doing with that book? Cobra pointed at the book Prickly had tucked into his dress. Prickly pulled it out to show everyone. I picked it up before I got balloons, Prickly said. This book is amazing. It tells you all of fun things you can do in the Big Apple. Which I haven't seen yet, but it must be around here somewhere. I wonder just how big the apple is. Stitch ignored Prickly. He knew that a detective had to keep focus on the task at hand, especially if he was going to lead his team again. This struck him as a pretty good detective role, so he wrote it down. Stitch's detective rule number 12. Stay focused on the task at hand, even when Prickly is rambling. Stitch and his friends opened the door to Grand Central's Terminal on 45 5th Street between Park and Lexington Avenues. Then walked down the long hallway, passing through the crowd of busy people coming and going. Stitch was enjoying his time in New York City so far. He hadn't even bothered to go into the dog mode, because New Yorkers didn't seem to care that a furry blue alien was in their midst. It was awesome. The compass announced, "You have arrived at your destination," and Stitch put it back inside his detective tool belt. He was just about to head down the corridor when Cobra said, "Follow me." Agent 626 glared at Cobra, watching as the agent heading to another hallway and down a flight of stairs. Jumbo obliquely followed him. When Lido saw that Stitch wasn't walking, she said, "Come on, we have to go. Cobra needs us." Grumbling, Stitch said, "Stitch is coming." Then he followed Lido and the others. Soon they came to the stand of the turnstiles, where the people taking the trains had to slide the card to pay their fare. Cobra produced one of these cards and slid it through the card reader on the turnstile. "You first," Cobra said, and Stitch went through. Cobra swiped a card again, and Lido entered. Then he swiped for Jumper. "You coming or not?" Cobra asked when he noticed Prickly was holding on to the nearby pole. "I'm not going through that thing," Prickly said. "Who knows what could happen? I went through it. I'm a kid," Lido said, smiling. "I went through it. I'm a genius scientist," Jumbo said, is also smiling. Cobra lowered his glasses and rolled his eyes. "I don't have time for this." Then Stitch scrambled under the turnstile and prized Prickly's hands off the pole. He lifted one-eyed alien over his head and nodded at Cobra. Ancient Bubbles swiped his card and Stitch carried Prickly for the turnstile. "See?" Stitch said. "Nothing to be afraid of." "Huh?" Prickly replied. I'm braver than I thought." Cobra swiped the card again and entered behind the others. "This is a platform," he said, and looked down at these tracks. "That's where I lost a bicycle." Stitch nodded and reached into his detective tool belt. He pulled out a magnifying glass and peered through it. The lens telescoped out until it reached a very spot on the tracks when the bicycle had gone missing. Stitch said. "Be careful, Stitch," Lido reminded her friend. You don't want to get too close to the tracks. It's dangerous." "She's right," Cobra said. Stitch looked at Lido and then Cobra and huffed. Why couldn't they understand that he knew what he was doing? He was about to say something when Cobra's galactic detective badge began to win. Cobra pressed the center. "Agent Bubbles," he said. What have you got?" Agent Pebbles, with some important information. Came a voice on the other end. "Apparently, there's been another sighting." "Where and what?" Cobra asked with intensity. The where is downtown," Ancient Pebbles replied. "I'll send you the coordinates." "And what is several rubbish bags?" Cobra almost laughed. "But not quite. That seems unremarkable." "You didn't let me finish," Ancient Pebbles said. "Several bin bags have been spotted." Downtown, herding a group of people into the subway. "Huh?" That's a bit more remarkable, Cobra replied, surprised. Ancient but pebbles sent of coordinates. Then the transmission mission ended. Okay, Stitch said, seizing the moment. We need to go. Hold on, Cobra said, interrupting Stitch. We aren't going anywhere, just me. I'll check out this lead. It could be dangerous. And think we both agree that I have more experience when it comes to this kind of thing. Stitch bristled. You keep investigating here, Stitch, Cobra continued. See if you can dig it up and any clues about that missing woman and the bicycle. Everyone, be careful, take care of each other, and we meet up later. I'll contact you over the GDA badge. Understood, Lilo said. Jumbo and Pleakley both nodded, but Stitch didn't say or do anything. Agent 66, Cobra said, lowering his glasses and making eye contact. Are we good? At last, Stitch looked up at Cobra. He was tired of everyone treating him like he couldn't do anything alone. He knew he could be a leader and every bit as good an agent as Cobra. But Cobra had said Stitch wasn't experienced enough. How was Stitch supposed to get experience if no one let him do anything? In that moment, Stitch resolved that he would show everyone exactly what he could do by himself. Understood, Stitch finally said. He gave Cobra a sharp nod as he watched the ancient run towards the subway exit. Once Cobra had left, Stitch began to score the subway platform with his magnifying glass. Stitch searching for clues. Then he began to call out the orders to others. Jumper, you check over there, he said, pointing at the bench. The scientist turned to Stitch with a questioning look on his face and said, but what does bench have to do with? Pleakley helped Jumper investigate bench. Stitch continued. Pleakley blinked several times. Excuse me, but I think Jumper might actually be right. Just do it, Stitch exclaimed, frustration in his voice. All right, Jumper said. So insistent. Then the scientist looked at Pleakley and, what do you mean Jumper might actually be right? I am always right. Pleakley rolled his eye as a look of concern crossed Leo's face. She walked to Stitch and put a hand on his back. What's wrong? She asked. Why are you acting like this? Acting, Stitch replied. Acting like what? Stitch is fine. I know you, Stitch, Lilo said. Something's not right. The way you were just now with Jumper and Pleakley, you're being bossy. We can't waste time talking, Stitch replied. Keep looking for clues. Lilo was stunned by Stitch's change in attitude. But if Stitch was concerned, he didn't show it. He had it up to here with Lilo telling him he was bossy, Cobra ordering him around, and Jumper and Pleakley questioning him. Stitch remembered Cobra saying that a weird woman and the self-riding bicycle had crossed the tracks and disappeared, so 66 knew exactly what he had to do. You stay here, Stitch said. Then he jumped onto the tracks below. Stitch, Lilo shouted, her voice full of worry. You can't just explore the tunnel on your own. We're supposed to stick together, like Cobra said. We're a team, remember? Look for clues here. Stitch yelled behind him, ignoring his friend. That's an order. In a flash, Stitch went into the multi-armed mode and scurried along a wall of the subway tunnel. Stitch, no! Lilo hollered. Her protest didn't register with Stitch. He knew what Cobras had said, but in his mind, that was only way because no one trusted Stitch to act on his own. He was a detective, a member of GDA. And if no one could see that, and then he would show them. I got this, Stitch said to himself as he scrambled along the wall and out of sight of his friend. Only a couple of minutes had passed, and Lilo continued to peer down a tunnel, hoping to catch a sight of Stitch. I'm sure he'll be fine, Jumbo said, trying to reassure Lilo. Agent 66 is quite resilient. I once threw him into a deep pit full of books, and he come out completely unscathed. What's a book? Leo asked. It's like a chicken, said Prickly, but they are poisonous. Book. I don't care about books, Lilo replied. I care about Stitch. He can't just go off by himself. He's a part of a team. Well, he sure wasn't acting like it, Prickly said. He was being kind of bossy pants, if you ask me. No one did, Jumbo said. You know, you could also be a little friendlier, Prickly said. You have been picking on me all day. Best friends are usually much nicer to each other. Jumbo stuttered, like he was about to speak, but he didn't know what to say. Then he just waved a dismissive hand. A frustrated Lilo said, "Why were you to stop arguing? It's bad enough that Stitch decided to investigate on his own. If we're going to be a team, we need to act like one." I will if he will, Prickly said, pointing at Jumbo. So, what do you suggest? Cobra asked us to search the subway platform for clues, she said. So, that's what we should do. What about Stitch? Prickly said. Well, just have to hope that he's okay and makes good decisions, Lilo said, then quietly so no one else can hear. She added, and that maybe he realised he's being a big doo-doo head and comes back soon. Stitch crawled along the subway tunnel ceiling. He crawled and crawled. Then he crawled some more. How much did he crawl? You asked. Well, on a scale of 1 to 10, with 1 being at least crawling and 10 being a most, he probably crawled about 157. In other words, he crawled a lot. And from that moment, he started crawling. Stitch couldn't ignore the stink. The tunnel was full of not so nice odors, kind of like wet, smelly rubbish. He thought about what had happened back in the platform. The way he had spoken to Jumbo and Prickly, and especially the way he had talked to Lilo. He hadn't meant to sound like that. He felt bad. His thoughts were interrupted by a buzzing sound. Stitch jumped off the ceiling and landed on the ground. He reached into his case and pulled out a communicator. It was Lilo calling. A part of him, he wanted to pick it up and tell Lilo he was sorry. But another part of him said to ignore a call. How could he go back to the platform and face Leda without having accomplished anything? Having to admit that maybe, just maybe, she was right, and he was wrong. Well, that would mean admitting that maybe he wasn't ready to work a case by himself to be a leader, and Stitch wasn't ready to accept that yet. So he returned the communicator to the case without answering a call. As he was putting it inside, he saw something on the ground that looked familiar. It was a curved spike, like a long nail or tooth. Stitch picked up the object and examined it. The thing looked almost exactly like the spike the Grand Councilwoman had showed them earlier. He must be on the right path. He started crawling along the ground. When he looked up, he noticed something different. Instead of the just grubbly subway tunnels, he began to see something green. Plants. There were little plants here and there, growing in cracks in the subway walls. They were unlike any plant he had even seen, or probably that you've never seen. Here, take a look. Stitch noticed a few spray paint cans laying on the side, and nearby, rats scurrying close to the tracks and darting in and out of the holes in the walls. There were cockroaches, too, skittering back and forth, up and down the wall, along the ground. The little bugs were making a distinct sound. Click, click, click. Reaching into his detective tool belt, Stitch rummaged around until he pulled out a magnifying glass. He looked at one of the strange plants for a few seconds, but didn't know what else to do with it. Thinking he might need another detective tool, Stitch reached back into the gold case. His paw came out with a detective device that looks like an enormously other-sized hearing ear. He pulled it over his own ear, but nothing happened. Then Stitch remembered how Cobra had spoken to an enormous compass to make it work. Maybe the ear thingy work the same way. Hello, ear thingy, Stitch said. I'm Agent 66, a voice said inside the ear. Welcome to the intergalactic over-ear translator. We can translate approximately 11 to 48 languages. Why not give it a try? In case you were wondering if an intergalactic over-ear translator really looked like an ear, just check out the blueprint. Intergalactic over-ear translator. Then sparked an idea in Stitch's little furry blue head as watched a cockroach sitting on the subway floor, making a clicking sound. He walked into the insects, cleared his throat, and said, "Greetings, I am Stitch." The answer was silence. Stitch wondered if the intergalactic over-ear translator was broken, or maybe he didn't know how to speak cockroach. But a second later, Stitch heard a tiny, almost elegant voice say, "Well, hello there, darling. My are the rather tall, aren't you? My name is Twixie. Twixie? Hello, Twixie," Stitch replied. "I am a detective on the case. Have you seen anything unusual?" Twixie thought for a moment, tilting her little cockroach head to one side. "Not today, I'm afraid," she answered. "But then I have been rather busy organising my schedule. Then another cockroach walked past Trixie, tapping her on the head. What about me? You asked me if I've seen something, a second cockroach said. Oh, Ed, darling, you always seen things. Well, maybe that's because I see things. Hello, Ed, Stitch said. Have you seen anything unusual? No, Ed said. Never hurts to ask, though. Am I right? Stitch frowned. Then he remembered a strange plant on the wall and sprayed the cans on the ground. What about those? He asked, pointing at the plants. Have you seen these before? Oh, the plants, sure, Ed said. Since what about a week ago? Most assuredly. Yes, a week ago. Trixie replied. Those little plants just start popping right up over the place, especially down there. She pointed at an antenna at a small hole in a subway floor nearby. Yeah, I guess that's a kind of unusual, Ed added. First a bicycle, then these plants. Sheesh. Stitch turned his head to look at Ed. Bicycle? He asked. Yeah, the bicycle. And not just any bicycle, Ed said. It was one of those. Waddia Kelt. One of them now self-riding bicycles, right, Trixie? Indeed, Trixie said. A most luxurious model, to be sure. A self-riding bicycle? Stitch wondered. Could that be the same bicycle Cobra had seen? The bicycle and the plants must be connected somehow, he thought. It was too much of a coincidence. Trixie and Ed had said as much, so he tapped his GDA badge, opened the closed section and jotted down strange plants. Then Stitch scrambled to the hole Trixie had pointed at and looked inside. It was too dark for him to see anything, really. It was so small, maybe just big enough for him to crawl into. But he didn't see anyway that the bicycle could have fit inside. The whole situation was very strange indeed. A vibrating sound came from inside the gold case on Stitch's detective tool belt. He knew it. It was an intergalactic communicator again, and he was only too aware of who was calling. He took it out of the case. It was Lilo, still not in listening mood. Stitch simply switched off the communicator and shifted back into the case as far as he could, as if to make it go away forever. Then he turned his attention back to the hole. Thank you for your help, Stitch said to Trixie and Ed as he scampered inside the hole. He moved so quickly that he didn't notice when he dropped his intergalactic over-ear translator on the ground behind him. Don't mention it, darling, Trixie said. No. What? No tip? Ed grumbled. Okay, so I'm going to stop here on page 27, on halfway through. We're going to continue on chapter 6. We will hopefully going to read more about Asian Stitch, the trouble with Toothoids. Hopefully we're going to find out soon on the third part of Disney Asian Stitch, the trouble with Toothoids. So, I hope you enjoyed this so far on the second part. Since I have been read first five chapters, I hope you enjoyed the story what I read to you. I hope you found more interesting, very intriguing indeed. It gives you more attention. Okay, so I'll go take a break for now. I'll see you in, or we'll continue. I'll see you in a short while.